Okay, so in this video, I'm going to help you become an entrepreneur and build something of your own that makes you at least $10,000 a month, working just 10 hours a week with $0 of upfront investment, and all without quitting your job. I know this because I've done this not once but twice, and that too in 2 different countries. Back in India, while working a high-stress job at Deloitte, I built my first business on the side. And then in Canada, I scaled my media company to multi-six figures, also alongside a full-time job. And those 2 experiences are what finally allowed me to become fully self-employed today. And honestly, with things changing so rapidly, there's never been a more important time to build something of your own. And I'm sure you've already felt it too. The cost of living keeps climbing. Rent, groceries, buying a house, even doing nice things for yourself and for your family just feels more expensive every year. And companies are restructuring and laying off every few months. Like one email can wipe out your entire sense of stability. I know because it happened to me earlier this year. And deep down, you know this too, but you don't want your entire future depending on one company, one boss, or one paycheck. You want to feel like you're actually in control. Welcome to I2R, my one-of-a-kind series where I walk you through a practical, proven, tested plan to get there step by step. So over the last few years, we've used and refined this exact growth framework with more than 20 clients. Personal brands, creators, coaches, founders, all kinds of people trying to build something meaningful online. That's when I asked myself, why can't I apply the same system to my own ideas? And so I did. I tested it with Money Coffee, my coffee venture, no fancy website, no ads, nothing polished. And in 48 hours, it made me over $1,400. And since then, we've been scaling aggressively across North America. And then I applied it again to this very program, the coaching and consulting model behind I2R. And I ended up making $2,400 in 6 weeks from a small beta group. That's when I knew that this isn't luck, it's a repeatable system. And if it worked for my clients, it worked for my coffee business, and it worked for this program, it can absolutely work for you. To make it even sharper, the last few weeks, I've spoken to 42 ambitious and aspiring entrepreneurs, some who had tried and failed, some who hadn't even taken their first step. Their stories, insights, and challenges that they faced helped me refine the system and shape it around real struggles and real constraints. And I've spent the last few months building this series so it's simple, actionable, and most importantly, something you can actually use right now. So if you stick around till the end, you'll walk away with everything you need to stop wasting time, finally get started, and put yourself on the path to your first 10K month and 100K year, all without quitting your job. And whatever I mentioned is all on top of your job. If this is the first time you're seeing my face, then hey, I'm Akash, and I'll be honest with you, my entire life changed because of one moment back in 2019. Back then, I was doing everything right. Engineering degree, a high-paying consulting job at Deloitte, the whole package. But one day, after a meeting with a partner, someone who was at least like 25 or 30 years older than me, someone who had quote-unquote made it, I walked out genuinely shaken from that meeting. Because the way he lived and the way he worked absolutely terrified me. His time, his calendar, his energy, his entire existence was controlled by the company. And I remember thinking to myself, wait, is this still going to be my life in my 40s or my 50s? Be at the beck and call of my manager or leader and asking someone for permission to take a vacation. I'm in my 50s. Why the would I ask someone's permission to take a vacation? Like something inside me knew I was not meant to live like that. And that was the moment entrepreneurship became non-negotiable for me. And so I decided to start building things on the side. I made a shit ton of mistakes, learned from them, tried again, and then eventually built a proper venture. And then earlier this year, like thousands of others, I got laid off. And yeah, it sucked, but I wasn't scared because I'd been quietly building a second income stream the whole time through my business Unimedia. Something that didn't depend on a company, something that no one could fire me from. And that's when I realized everyone needs their own thing, not someday, but right now. So where did I start? Well, in hindsight, I would have done things so differently because when I finally decided to get started, I had more questions than answers. And when I talked to those 42 driven, ambitious people, I realized that we were all starting in the same place with the same 5 questions. I don't even know what to build or sell. There are things you're good at, things you have interest in, but which of it actually makes you money? How do I even start? Like you consume content endlessly, but when it's time to take action, you freeze or you just decide to procrastinate. What if I make money once, but never again? Real talk, you want a system that brings in money consistently and there's no confidence in your idea. How do I do this alongside a full-time job? You end the day tired, burnt, overwhelmed, so where does entrepreneurship even fit? And finally, can I even really start with a $0 investment? everything online looks expensive, from software to fancy websites to all these tools that you need. You get the point. And so the challenge is not how do I quit my job and suffer for years not knowing whether it's going to work or not. The real first step then is how to become a 9-to-5 entrepreneur. Someone who uses their job as a safety net, builds a second income stream on the side, and then chooses later whether to go all in or not. So keeping that in mind, I took everything I learned from those conversations, everything that worked for my clients at Unimedia, and wrapped it into one simple system. I call it the I2R framework. It stands for idea to revenue. It has 5 pillars, and they all tackle those questions that I mentioned earlier. I'll slowly introduce them in the series, but for now you just need to know this. The I2R framework is a practical system to help an ambitious 9-to-5er become an entrepreneur with a $0 upfront investment and hit their first 10K month in 3 to 6 months, working just 10 hours a week, all alongside a full-time job. At the core of this is a model that's used by numerous other entrepreneurs like Ali Abdaal, Matt D'Avella, Sunny Lenarduzzi, and that requires 2 massive shifts to get started. I like to think of it as the old way versus the new way of playing the game. So let's start with how most people are taught to make money online. The old way looks like post as much content as you can, try to go viral, pray a brand deal lands in your inbox, and you sell some $29 product or some templates, and then you wait for YouTube AdSense to magically start paying your rent. And then at some point you're like, I'm doing everything these guys have told me. Why is my bank account still empty? I've seen this up close because not only have I tried this out for myself and failed miserably a few years ago, but also with Unimedia, I've worked with creators and entrepreneurs who had tens of thousands of followers, big accounts, getting massive views, and they were only making a few hundred or the max of $1,000 a month. And so the new way flips this completely, and we start with a different question. How can I help a specific person so much that they're happy to pay me good money for that transformation? Because when you do that, you actually have a reliable math you can lean on. Like 5 clients paying you $2K each month gets you to your $10,000 month. 10 clients paying you $1,000 each gets you to your $10,000 month. 20 clients paying you $500 each, you get the gist. But all this comes with a focus on specificity. A specific customer, let's call them the ideal customer, with a specific problem, and you offering a specific solution that actually works for them. And this is exactly how I approach I2R. And because you're looking at only impacting a few people, you don't need to go viral. You don't need 100,000 followers, and you don't need to be internet famous. And so instead of measuring vanity metrics, you're measuring revenue or the money you make. And this actually ensures that you have far more control of how you earn too, which is a huge thing. Which brings me to the first pillar of my framework. Most people stuck in this situation think, I don't have this awesome startup idea. I don't have that novel business to start. I don't even know what business to start. Someone already does what I can offer. Why would they even pick me? So these people, they just sit there trying to invent some crazy new app or the next Uber for something. And then they eventually give up, or they keep waiting for an awesome new idea. You just need a clear transformation that you can offer to your ideal customer. And this transformation will be based on your lived experience and what you know and are good at. For instance, you already have skills from your job or problems you've solved in your own life, experiences, scars, mistakes, learnings, stuff already people come to you for advice on, or maybe even hobbies you love doing. Now pause this video and think through which of those would people be willing to pay money for. Like, listen to this section again if you have to, but I want you to spend some time and actually identify a few things that you can bring to the table. Now, if you've found something, great, you can move on to the next step. But if you're skeptical like I am, you might ask, why would someone pay me for this? Now, let me give you an example to show you what's possible. So I've been playing a lot of pickleball recently, and I've picked up the sport, say, reasonably well. And the more I show up and play pickleball, the more I get to play with others too, and they get to see how good or bad I am. And recently, I've gotten at least a few inquiries from people who've seen me play to coach them and their peers. Like, I'm talking willing to pay me at least, $50 to $60 per hour per person to teach them how to improve their game. Am I a pro? No. Do I have any certifications or credentials? No. Do I know the sport enough to help someone who's relatively new to the sport or needs some finesse? Absolutely. And all this because I've been through the same situation they're currently in, and I know the challenges I faced, and I can help them get past theirs. Like, never in a million years would I have thought that this would even be an option. And so if I wanted, I could actually put together a solid business plan around this and make some significant money from it too. So remember, people pay for anything that you can help them out with, provided you have a clear plan and proof. For instance, as part of our media company, we have worked with clients who have productized their skills in ways you can't even imagine. For example, we worked with a real estate agent whose entire business model wasn't just to sell properties, but was to train other real estate agents to attract leads and close deals in the most efficient way possible. We've also worked with an ex-Microsoft executive whose entire goal was to help people in their 40s or 50s reboot their careers or find new purpose in the latter stages of their career. And so if it's possible for them, it's possible for you too. You're just missing a plan to turn that into something someone can pay for. And that's where Lamente, the first pillar of I2R, comes in. With this pillar, we don't just sit around and brainstorm business idea or wait for the perfect business idea. We look inward and find a business opportunity based on our own lived experiences and skills. And then based on our skills or what we can offer, we reverse engineer a business model out of it. And all this comes with a focus on specificity. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about solving a specific problem for a specific customer with a specific solution which will equal serious buyers. That's the entire game. And this way we come up with a solid offer. It's a simple sentence. It's almost like an elevator pitch of sorts. I help specific person to go from painful before to desirable after, basically giving them a meaningful outcome. And in my case, because of my experience of starting and scaling businesses in the most nimble way possible, my offer with I2R became helping ambitious 9-to-5ers become entrepreneurs with a $0 investment and get them to their first $10,000 month in 3 to 6 months, working a max of 10 hours per week, all without quitting their day job. You see that it's super specific. That actually came from my own story, my skills, my clients, my experiments, and thinking through how I could position the transformation. And once that transformation was clear, everything else snapped into place. And that's how I got the beta program going. But remember, while it's important to get clear on this is still just a business idea or a hypothesis at the end of the day. What will actually prove if it's a viable opportunity is if people are willing to pay money for it or not. And that brings me to the next pillar, Rapido. Now, most people have ideas, but it usually doesn't become an actual business because they don't end up making a single dollar from it. They get stuck in what I call the red zone. The red zone looks like this. They pick an idea, or in our case, a business hypothesis, and they spend months building it. They design logos, websites, funnels. They sign up for 10 tools or apps to support their flows. They record videos and they build a course. And only after all of that, they finally try their best to sell it. That's the trap. It's a big trap that no one sees because they've spent time, money, effort, energy, confidence, all of it on something that hasn't been proven yet. Like I said earlier, it's still a hypothesis. The goal should be for you to quickly validate a hypothesis and see if people would be willing to pay money for this or not. If they don't, then it's not a business and you move the fuck on. If they do, then congrats, you're on your way. And the quickest way for you to do that would be to flip the order. You sell before you build. You test before you invest. Let me give you a quick example of my coffee business I started earlier this year, Money Coffee. When I started Money, what I did not do was print 1,000 coffee bags in different sizes, build a Shopify store, spend weeks on a logo, shoot a fancy brand film, incorporate the company, create content on all platforms. Because trust me, this is all very easy for me to do considering I run a full-blown media company. So instead, I talked to coffee consumers, coffee lovers here in Canada and the US, and few of my friends too. And I understood what was missing in the coffee space here. And I came up with the right coffee products that we could sell to solve for that gap. And then I put together a PDF using AI that painted a clear picture of what they could expect. And then I tried pre-selling my coffee. And the result, over $1,400 in 48 hours. Remember, I had no website, ran no ads, no physical product yet. That's Rapido in action, the second pillar of I2R. You validate fast, you let real humans, not your imagination, and actual revenue decide whether your idea is worth building or not. Now that we spoke about what to start and how to start, let's talk about how to keep getting customers, which in business terms would be marketing and spreading the word around what you offer. And for this, let's go back to a point I made earlier. You don't need to go viral and probably shouldn't go viral. Sounds weird, I know, but there's a reason why. Every platform is trying to get you to chase views. But remember that we're not here to bag sponsorship deals or UGC deals. We're here to run a reliable side hustle. And so with a business, going viral is not the goal. With a business, making money and staying profitable is the goal. I've worked with numerous clients at Unimedia who had massive audiences, great reach, and were still making less than people with tiny focused communities. Because remember, views don't equal revenue, And trust is what people actually pay for. And right now, there's a real trust recession online. Everyone's skeptical. Everyone's been burned by some course or program or guru. So if you want someone to pay you $500 or $1,000, $2,000 or $5,000, they need to trust you. And that happens only when they have spent enough time with you and they've repeatedly seen or interacted with you, or you've shown proof that you understand them and you've kind of instilled the belief that you can actually help them. This is exactly what Novo, the third pillar of I2R, is built for. Novo is a trust-based marketing system, and with it, you're not trying to publish content to the whole world. You're building a small and targeted ecosystem that convinces the right people that you are the obvious person to work with. And this is the same thing I employ in my content too. Ever since I started publishing content, I've gotten quite a few inquiries and requests to help people out with their businesses. And if you need further proof, here's Google's advice. There's a concept or a study that Google did called the 7-11-4 rule. It says that before someone buys from you, they need to spend 7 hours with you across 11 different touch points or instances on 4 different platforms or places. And this is why a random viral video is not enough. Someone liking one reel is not the same as, watching few of your 20-minute YouTube videos, or reading your newsletters for a month, or seeing your detailed blogs on LinkedIn, or maybe even joining a live session. Like, all of that stacked together is what actually builds trust. So the game is to not go viral, because trust me when I say it's not easy to go viral, and I'm sure you know that. And going viral once or twice won't get you anywhere. I'm sure you know of some of those accounts too. So the real game is, how do I design my content ecosystem so the right person naturally spends those 7 hours with me across those 11 touch points on those 4 different platforms? That is where Novo comes in. Let me break down what this ecosystem actually looks like. There are 6 stages for your ideal customer. There's stranger, someone who has no idea who you are and that you exist. Then there's an audience member, someone who found you through the algorithm and consumes your content. They scroll, watch, maybe like a few of your posts or videos and then leaves. And then there's a lead, someone who has seen enough of you to think, okay, this person gets it. So they click a link, they DM you, they join your list, or they raise their hand slightly. Then there's a prospect. It's basically a lead who has moved one step closer to you. Maybe they have downloaded something from you, joined a free workshop, replied to your email, or filled up a form. And then you have a client, someone who has now paid you and you're working with them, or they're inside your program. And then finally, we have a successful client. This is the most important one. It's basically someone who has gotten the result you promised, so they become a case study, a testimonial, and a magnet for more of the right people. Novo is about building a system that gently moves the right person through all 6 stages, one step at a time, without you hard selling them all the time. Now, obviously, the next question is, how do we actually move people through these stages? We basically do it by using different types of content and platforms with different levels of attention and intent. You can think of it as an attention ladder. There's low attention and low intent, short form platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Shorts. This is where people first discover you. They're scrolling, they're distracted, and they're not looking to spend like a few $1,000s on a course or a program or a transformation. Here, you basically give them nuggets, short, sharp insights that make them go, wait, this person actually knows what they're talking about. Then we have the mid attention and mid intent. They're basically long form platforms like YouTube and podcasting platforms. Once your audience is curious, they want depth. They watch a full video, they listen to you for 10, 20, 30 minutes. And here is where you do long form content and deep dives. You teach, you tell them stories, you show them your method, just like how I'm doing right now, and you start to become a real person in their heads. And then finally, you have high attention and high intent. It's basically a community. It could be a newsletter, an email list. So normally people might suggest platforms like school and Facebook groups when it comes to communities. But here, what I'm really talking about is your email list. And once they sign up, the dynamic changes. You're no longer at the mercy of the algorithm. You've invited them into a more personal space, a more intimate space. And here your newsletters build a real relationship. You share insights behind the scenes and talk to them like a real human. And because it's on email, the intent is much higher than a platform like Instagram or TikTok. And then finally, super high attention. It's basically closed and paid communities or programs. This is where they decide, okay, I want help and I'm in. And here's where you deliver the specific transformation that you came up with in Lamente. So basically your ideal viewer moves through this diamond over time. They find you through a nugget, they binge a couple of deep dives, they join your newsletter, and they finally step into your world as a client and experience the transformation. And all of this is designed to quietly check off that 7-11-4 requirement while moving them from stranger to audience to lead to prospect to client and then successful client. This is how I built my business Unimedia from scratch. From zero to multi six figures, no website for the first 2 years, no paid ads, all inbound leads, all from content, relationships, and trust. It's a funny story with Unimedia because it started with my video podcast that I started recording in my dining room. Eventually, it blew up, went on to be ranked in the top 2% globally, and also got sponsored by Sennheiser. And with the quality of content that we were publishing, we got a lot of inbound leads asking us to help them with their content. Because I'd published more than 1,000 videos in total, people started equating me to the person who was a content and a podcasting expert, apparently. And through my content, they learned the kind of discipline I followed and the method I approached the work with. And so I didn't have to convince any of these inbound leads. They were already sold on the fact that I could actually help them out with this. I could help them out with their podcast or content. And that's how Unimedia became a proper business. All thanks to Novo, although I didn't know it at the time. I did all of this with a small following on Instagram and YouTube. So when I tell you you don't need to go viral, you don't need to spend on ads, and you don't need a huge audience, I'm not guessing. I'm literally telling you what practically works. But it definitely requires a mental shift. So just to quickly connect this back to those 5 questions I mentioned at the start. I don't even know what to build. Lamente pulls the idea out of you and we turn it into a clear transformation. I don't know how to start. Rapido gives you a step-by-step way to sell before you build and validate the idea fast. What if I make money once but I can't make it again? Where do I get my leads from? Novo builds the trust-based ecosystem so that you can find clients on autopilot. How do I do this alongside my 9 to 5? Well, Diaz Pillar 4 is the 10-hour-a-week practical system that can ensure you find time to do this alongside your job. I'll go into this in another episode. And finally, can I actually begin with $0? And that's where Sinversion, which is the $0 startup playbook, free tools and simple systems you can use to get started without a heavy upfront investment. These 5 together are what's going to get you from I should start something someday into I'm building a real business that can pay me $10,000 a month. Now, before we go any further and go into the nitty-gritty, I want to be really clear on who this is for and who this is not for. If you're here for a shortcut, this is not for you. If you want to press a few buttons and then magically make 10K a month, this is not for you. Like, no one can do that. And if you see someone selling you that, stay the fuck away from them. If you're not willing to show up for yourself at least 10 hours a week, then this is not for you either. But if you are scared of being average and worried of never using and seeing your full potential and apprehensive of being one layoff away from panic and irritated by how reliant you are on your corporate job and at the same time hungry to build something of your own, then you are exactly who I made this for. This is for ambitious people who want ownership, like real ownership and freedom, but also will do whatever it takes to make it a reality. A smart, high leverage path to building something of your own and making money and keep making money. And if you've stuck around till now, then chances are that you too vibe with this. So join me because I'm on a mission to help as many ambitious people as possible get there in the simplest and most practical way I know how, and to build a community of people who are just not okay with settling. Alright, before we wrap, here's what you can do next. If everything you heard today genuinely resonated, if you're watching this thinking, yeah, I want to build this properly and I want help doing it, then you're in luck because I'm taking in people for my next cohort. But let me reiterate once again. If you're looking for an easy shortcut or a quick win, or you're not willing to hold yourself accountable, please don't apply. Like, I'm building a tight-knit community of ambitious, disciplined go-getters, and if that's not you, you're not a good fit, and that's totally okay. But if this method and video hit home and you felt like this was finally the plan you've been searching for, then DM me on Instagram with the words work with AD, and we'll chat and see if you're a strong fit for the next group. Yeah, it's not open to everyone. There's going to be a serious vetting process to ensure you're a good fit for this community. Or if you still need some time but still want to go a bit deeper right now, then you can join my free 15-day email series. It's a practical step-by-step breakdown of how to become an entrepreneur alongside a full-time job. The link is in the description. It's completely free, it'll always be free, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. And if you simply enjoyed this and you vibe with how I explain things, then stick around for the rest of the series. Episode 2 is where I show you an in-depth breakdown of putting together a specific offer and transformation for your specific client so that they have a hard time saying no. If you like the video, hit the like button, drop me a comment, subscribe, all those good stuff, and let's keep it going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.